Okay everyone, welcome back to UFTA Premium, and now we're going to discuss a few game variants that I considered, which may or may not become part of the regular rules, but they're so compelling and they're so interesting that they do have a good shot of getting in there, okay? And so the three issues at hand are what to do on die roll 6, whether or not it should be strengthened or not, and the three topics revolving around die roll 6 are changing sabotage into an action, the issue of negotiation. If you make sabotage an action, what happens to negotiation and how does that work? And then finally, the opportunity to do double sabotage. Okay, so definitionally speaking, the game as it stands, again, sabotage is an activity. It only occurs on die roll 6, and you can only affect one opponent at a time. If you do choose to sabotage, that brings up the ability to negotiate. If a player doesn't want to, if a grower doesn't want to give up certain resources or assets, then they can offer something of value in exchange for the potentially sabotaged item. Okay, and so if we make the change, if we say that sabotage is now an action, that has the effect of taking an action away from the grower when it's their turn on die roll 6, and it effectively makes them choose between doing something where they can play, they can kind of go on the warpath against others, or they can stay within their system, stay on their farm and improve productivity on their farm. Okay, and so it's just kind of a case of giving growers more options. And so it seems like sabotage can be an action, and there's no ill consequence and there's no negative net effect on the game. It does seem to flow naturally from the spirit of the game, all of the rules and logic that's already in place, and so we feel good about that. So really the big question is double sabotage. And so it took me a little while, it took several playtest sessions, and it's certainly not over. I will continue to test it, but it seems to me that the best compromise in order to keep all of these different components active and interesting in the game, while not overwhelming the players, is to allow sabotage to become an action, to also allow double sabotage to happen, keep it open as an option for growers if they want to, and then to keep a negotiation a possibility. So that's kind of where things stand. So I'm just going to demonstrate a quick playtest right here, so you can kind of see what it looks like in action and see like what are the issues that are coming up, right? If I do this thing. So anyway, as it stands, you can notice here grower number 1 has we have 2 items planted. They happen to be the possible for a 2-crop combo, so that's good. And we also had marker token protection right here, so that looks pretty good. And we have the greenhouse, right? So we're looking very good in this corner. Over here, grower number 2 has 3 different items, and they have different levels of marker token protection on them, rooting them in the market, right? As we learned from a previous video. And then over here, we have sort of the same thing. We have 3 items. We do have the resource, the disc, and we also have 15 hunger tokens worth of marker token protection. Okay, and so everything looks pretty even right now. Let's just see what naturally flows from the interactions of the growers, right? So just real quickly. All right, so now we have a productive rule. Actually, this is going to be a productive rule, and it's going to be a 6, right? Because that, in fact, is what we're testing. So here we have the opportunity. If sabotage is now an action, I can use that action, and I can find a player and remove 1 item, just like normal. However, then I only have one action left, and then unlimited activities, right? Okay, so that possibility is in place. The question though becomes, what do I do about negotiations? If I make this an action, I'm going to go over to this party and I'm going to say, hey, I am doing the action of sabotage. If they decide, if we decide that negotiation happens instead of the action, then that kind of brings up the question of, well, they didn't really do an action, did they? Or should they be penalized if instead, a negotiation item comes from this person's farm to this person's? Does that really make up for the fact that they didn't in fact get to carry out their sabotage? Right? And well, I guess the way to answer that question is, if the sabotage fell through, but this grower who has essentially all the power in this particular transaction, if they have all the power and they agree to a negotiation, then it seems to me that they have invited the fact that they will lose that action. Okay, it's okay in the sense that they still gain something of tremendous value, not necessarily what they wanted, but since they have the final say-so in whether a negotiation should happen in the first place, it seems to me that this player, if they agree to negotiate, then they agree to give up that action, and then that they have one action left. Now, you could look at this the other way. There's always a yin and yang to this, and I have no idea sometimes what the right answer is. The other way to look at this is, this particular grower should be able to have their action back. If a negotiation happens, then we can say that the original force of the sabotage was not played on this particular grower, and that in fact, because that was not carried out, the threat is no longer present for them, and in exchange for that, this person should get their action back, right? And so in that sense, we could simply say that if a sabotage is successful, it's an action. I actually do remove the whatever the item is. That's an action, and then I only have one left. If negotiation is successful, then the sabotage is not an action. So basically, it'll be the one time in the game where there's something that's completely conditional. The definition is changed depending on the conditional that happens, the hypothetical that happens, right? So, and the other drawback to this is if digital coding is in the future for this, it may be kind of hard on the computers. I don't know if they can understand this or not. They may be able to. I don't know. That's pretty cutting edge stuff, right? And so, anyway, what I'm driving at is the fact that something has a definition, it's set, but then if something else happens, the definition changes, the content of what that thing actually is, it turns into something else. And so that may be kind of hard to define in terms of computer coding languages. So that's a big I don't know on that one. But just between people though, some things are way easier, right? When you can just sit down and talk, person to person. But as it stands right now, the negotiation factor is if I agree to negotiate, then I still have two actions left. That's how it seems to me. Because negotiation is sort of like a weakness for the person who brings sabotage. It's a compromise, right? And maybe on the other end of that compromise, they get their action back. I don't know. Anyway, so here's how it stands. I'm going to sabotage this person. They agree to sabotage, and so that becomes an action. And I'm going to sabotage their potatoes. So notice, of course, we always start with the top level. Marker token comes off. And that was one action. Now this player has one action left. And so that action is going to be, they're going to cultivate. That was very expensive, by the way. 4 tokens, right? Okay, and that takes care of that. So let's move on and see what else happens. 2's productive. Let's go with, yeah, so now we like everything where it's at. But check it out. This particular grower, they have an opportunity to move this person's items in the market, and that is perfect for them. Notice how I don't have marker token protection on both of these items, right? And so what we're going to have to do is they're going to lose their broccoli. Notice how I got to check the market though. I can't move the carrots, right? Because carrots are rooted over here. So if I can't do that, I'll move the kale then. There doesn't seem to be any kale. So I'm going to move that. So there again, the presence of marker tokens on everyone's crops is sort of a global systemic thing that you kind of have to be aware of. It's another situational circumstance and UFTA that demands that you kind of be savvy about what's going on. Okay, so there we made the change. And that's all they can do on their turn. That's a die roll 2. Over here, yeah, they're not going to gamble. Okay, so here's another sabotage opportunity. Now, the double sabotage possibility can only happen after the first growing season has been completed. This makes sense because obviously if you bring double sabotage early in the game, that's very limiting. A little bit too much animosity, a little too much adversity for other growers. We can't have that. And so after the first growing season, that's the only time that a double sabotage is in fact available. So now at this point we're just going to pretend, we're going to assume that we went around an entire growing season. We're back to cucumbers. And now we have the opportunity to do a double sabotage. And so that demonstration should be pretty easy. Double sabotage costs, one sabotage costs an action. If that's the case, then double sabotage obviously costs 2. And so that's what's going to happen here. The only question after that is what can this grower do after those 2 possibilities have been exhausted, right? And so what we're going to say is, yeah, they're going to go ahead and sabotage, and then they're going to figure out which items are in their best interest to sabotage. Okay, so this grower over here has a 2-crop combo for sure. No one else does, it looks like. So they're going to disrupt them. So notice how they can do this. There's several ways. If they have 2 sabotage opportunities, they're going to in fact sabotage 2 items. And now notice how with the double sabotage, there's 0 opportunity for negotiation. All bets are off the table, and that's how that's going to be. So I bring the double sabotage, there's no negotiation. It's an immediate removal of 2 items of my choosing. And I think in this case it's going to be I'll remove the potatoes, and then I'll remove 5 tokens of marker token protection. So that becomes 5. Potatoes goes like this, and chard moves down. Okay? So that's a demonstration of double sabotage. Again, 2 actions. Now, it's still this grower's turn, and they have to figure out what can we do. Well, my feeling is double sabotage is pretty powerful, and so I'm wondering if it should just be a lose a turn, right? After double sabotage happens, no further actions or activities can take place, right? That may be the easiest thing to do. So that's quite a sacrifice. If this grower sacrifices that much, It seems to me that the yin and yang, the balance is even, right? The balance of positivity and other factors in the game. Okay, so that's kind of where it stands right now. So really, the lingering question in this case is, do negotiations feel like they are strong at this point? And then how do I resolve the natural conflict that kind of arises with definitions if a sabotage doesn't work out, right? So if the sabotage doesn't work out, that accrues a penalty. And then of course there's another penalty for just if you do bring a failed sabotage, you fail to notice that certain protections are enjoyed by other growers, then that has a separate issue, a separate penalty. That doesn't seem to conflict with anything that I'm talking about right here, though, so that's kind of nice. So, yeah, that's where it stands. I'll do a few more rounds, and then we'll see if it becomes clear, like, how negotiations work. In this place, or in this particular case, let's say they rolled a 6 again, right? Over here we've rolled a 6, and now we have the opportunity they have the opportunity to do 2 things, right? Or 3, really. They could choose not to sabotage at all, do 2 actions and regular activities on their turn. They could choose to sabotage, which costs an action, in this theoretical example, and then have 1 action left, and then unlimited activities. Or they could bring the full bore of double sabotage and then lose their turn completely, having wreaked as much havoc as possible on everyone else. And so they have a tough choice to make. They got to think about this. Should they just be productive on their turn, or should they sabotage as much as possible? Again, I do love that opportunity. A hard choice to make in UVTA is always a better one, right? So, anyway, so we're going to sabotage. Let's say we want to sabotage, and then let's say negotiation happens. So they say, hey, I don't want to get rid of my radishes and broccoli over here, or I don't want to lose my marker token either. So I'm going to negotiate, and I'm going to say, hey, why don't you take something else instead? Like carrots? Yeah, here's some carrots, right? It's looking pretty good. I'll just drop them the bait. Hey, you want my carrots? And then over here, we say, well, if I let that negotiation go through, I've lost an action. But theoretically, we could say it doesn't cost you an action. That if the negotiation goes through, I still have 2 actions left. So that seems pretty powerful for this person. They brought the sabotage in the first place. They gained something of value from me, from the aggrieved party. They get some super nice stuff. If they agree to it, they get it. It also eliminates something that they don't want, which has another cascading effect that we were uncertain about, right? Another movement in the market when they replace. And then I have to decide, well, wait a minute, should they still be able to do 2 actions, right? If we don't make that sabotage an action? So it's hard to say. This is why you have to play test a lot, to just kind of figure out, like, what's the fairest route. Mirror, mirror on the wall, right? Okay, so anyway, I think where we're not completely clear about, I would say, are negotiations. Should that be an action, or, should the act of a single sabotage be an action? And if so, if it leads to negotiations, should that in fact nullify the fact that the sabotage happened, and then the original party should still have 2 actions, right? Okay, so that's kind of how things stand right now. Double sabotage is looking great. Again, they can't occur until after the first growing season. So the question still lingers: single sabotage, action or activity, and then what do we think about negotiation? So I think that's going to do it for this session, and I will see you next time. All right, thank you, everyone.